So, hello everyone. Thank you for attending this webinar, which will give you an overview of measurement, analysis, and improvement according to ISO 9001-2015. My name is Pereira da Cruz, and I'm an author at 𝗧𝗿𝗏𝗏. I do quite a lot of ISO 9001 consulting and training. Still, as the lead auditor, I also conduct audits. So today I will share my thoughts on measurement, analysis, and improvement in accordance with ISO 9001-2015. My presentation will last about 40 minutes, followed by a 20-minute Q&A session. So feel free to ask any question. You don't need to wait for the Q&A session. Feel free to ask during my presentation by clicking the Q&A icon and submitting your question. Okay. Naturally, during the Q&A session, I'll also address your remaining inquiries. Later, we'll send you an email with a link to this webinar's recording and a list of articles mentioned. Okay, so if you ask why this presentation, why this webinar, my answer is that we aim to ensure that measurement leads to action, okay, avoids wasted data, and promotes genuine improvement in quality and performance. So this presentation will show you how to measure, analyze, and improve performance in ISO 9001 QMS. And we developed this webinar particularly for quality managers, process owners, and decision makers responsible for monitoring and improving performance. Well, here's our agenda for today. We'll begin by discussing the significance of measurement, so it's the why, followed by what exactly should be measured. Once we understand what to measure, we will then address how to effectively plan those measurements. After gathering data, the next step involves transforming raw data into meaningful information through analysis. Based on evaluation, we must determine when and how to take action. Therefore, we'll explore when and how to improve. We'll discuss common barriers to corrective actions and improvement toward the end. And finally, we'll address the main challenges based on the questions received via email before this webinar. During the Q&A, I will show 4 extra slides to support the answer to some of these questions received before the webinar. Okay. So let's move. Let's go to answer the question of the why. So imagine an IT support team responsible for ensuring system uptime. So they assume that everything is running smoothly because they only respond to major incidents. However, unnoticed, system slowdowns and minor outages keep happening, frustrating users. And eventually, what happens is the critical failure occurs, bringing down the entire system for hours. Upon investigation, they realized that early warning signs had been present all along: spiking server loads, increasing response times, and a growing backlog of unresolved tickets. But no one was measuring them consistently. So without proper measurement and monitoring, organizations operate reactively instead of proactively. So early detection through KPIs like system uptime, response time, server load, and unresolved tickets, like for this example, allows organizations to predict failures, improve service, and prevent costly downtime. Measurement provides visibility and control over quality, helps detect deviations before they turn into failures, and prevents reactive management, that firefighting mode versus, what we prefer, proactive action. So measuring performance isn't just about fixing problems when they happen. It's about determining and preventing issues before they escalate. We measure because there is uncertainty. Measurement is not about collecting data. It's about reducing uncertainty so decisions can be made with confidence. Okay, so this is about why we measure. Now, let's go to the next topic about what needs to be measured. So, have you ever been in a meeting where people discuss dozens of metrics, but at the end, no one knows what really matters? Yeah. So, not all measurements drive quality or improvement. So, what should we truly measure? To make measurement meaningful, we can classify key metrics into 4 main categories. These 4 quality management systems. So, customer satisfaction. So, how happy are your customers, our customers? Do they have complaints? Are we meeting their expectations? The other one is process performance. Are our operations efficient? Do we have defects or bottlenecks? Next one, suppliers and external providers. So are our suppliers delivering on time and with the right quality? And product service quality. So are we producing products or services that meet specifications and avoid rework? Just because something is measurable doesn't mean it should be measured. So let's examine a few examples of selecting the right indicators. Okay, so imagine a call center that measures the number of calls per hour. So number of calls per hour, it sounds logical, right? High numbers mean more productivity. But what if those calls aren't solving problems? Now let's compare that to another call center that measures issue resolution on the first call, meaning how often the customer's problem is solved without requiring a follow-up. So, which of these truly improves customer experience? The second one, of course. It aligns with quality, efficiency, and customer satisfaction instead of just counting activities. The right metric focused on the outcome, not just the activity. So focus on the purpose, on what do we want to get, what we want to achieve. Now, let's look at an IT example. A software development team tracks the number of code lines written. So the more the better, right? Oh, but does writing more code mean better software? Not really. What if we instead measure the number of bugs found in production? This tells us how stable and reliable the software is for users. So more lines of code could mean more complexity and more potential errors. So again, the question is, are we tracking output or are we tracking quality? So if a metric doesn't help us improve or make better decisions, it's probably the wrong one. To summarize, measuring too much or the wrong things can lead to wasted effort and false confidence. ISO 9001 does not ask you to measure everything, only what is relevant to performance and improvement. Always ask, does this metric help us improve performance or customer satisfaction or decision making? If a metric does not trigger a decision or an action, it does not belong in our QMS, okay, or in your QMS. Now, I leave here the link for some articles. The first one is Practical Tips for Measuring Your QMS according to ISO 9001 2015, clause 9.1. I leave here another article called How to Write Good Quality Objectives, and one third called How to Define Key Performance Indicators for a QMS based on ISO 9001. Okay, now we have here a question from Ed. Ed asked, do all processes have to have a KPI or process measurement assigned? So it provides the example of calibration. So calibration is a good example. So do all processes have to have a KPI or process measurement assigned? And my answer is no. ISO 9001 does not require every process to have a KPI. It requires processes to be monitored or measured, okay, where appropriate. So support or control processes like calibration are often best managed through compliance to schedule, status, so valid or overdue, or conformity of results. So if measurement does not inform decisions or improvement, a KPI adds just bureaucracy rather than value. Okay. So what needs to be measured? Let's continue. Okay, so let's see an example about how to plan measurement. So we decide what needs to be measured. Now we need to plan to get sure that things are going to be measured and are going to be used. Okay. So have you ever been? Have you ever been? Sorry, I'm wrong. Okay. So how to plan? So imagine a factory producing automotive parts. Okay. The team decides to measure total parts produced per shift as their key performance indicator. Total parts produced per shift as their key performance indicator. After all, the more parts produced, the better, right? But soon, customer complaints increase and returns skyrocket. Okay, so why? Because they didn't measure defect rates or rework costs, just production volume. Measuring without proper planning can lead to the wrong priorities and unexpected failures. So we often assume that measuring anything is better than measuring nothing, but that's wrong. However, poor measurement planning can waste time, lead to bad decisions, and result in missed improvement opportunities. So before selecting metrics, consider the following questions. What is the real objective behind the measurement? We'll be responsible for collecting and analyzing the data. How will the data be used to make decisions? Is the measurement reliable and consistent? So let's see now the key elements of a measurement plan. So we need to define the right KPI. So instead of just tracking total parts produced, we can measure something like first pass yield. So percentage of defect-free parts produced the first time. Then we need to assign ownership. So the production team collects the data while quality control reviews the data. We need to standardize the methodology. So we need to ensure that we use the same sampling method, time intervals, and defect classification to ensure consistent results, to ensure that we are comparing apples to apples, oranges to oranges, okay? And make sure it's actionable. So if the defect rate exceeds 2%, a corrective action process should automatically trigger, something like that. Now, planning measurement is not just about choosing a number to track. It's about selecting meaningful data that drives better decisions and real improvements. So before you measure anything, ask yourself, will this data help us improve or just create numbers on a dashboard or on a scorecard? So 𝗂𝗵𝗶 asks, is scorecard a way to implement this requirement? Yes, is one way, or one way of presenting the analyzed data. So it's a way of showing the information. Yeah. Of these four, define, assign, standardize, and make sure, I believe that the most critical is standardized methodology. Okay. So you will have a signal, raw KPI data, that needs to be processed to turn data into insight to deliver an output, okay, a decision or an action. So processing is the core step here, okay? We need discipline. Discipline is required to collect data accurately. So people at the same time or at the right time, they collect the data. We need good analysis. Good analysis needed to extract meaningful patterns. We need discussions to ensure different perspectives validate insights. And we need decision-making. So decision-making translates data into real-world actions. Badly planned measurement doesn't just waste time. It actively drives the wrong behavior, okay? So we have here what we can call a quality plan or a quality control plan or a process control plan. So to answer the question how to plan measurement. So clause, when you go to clause 9.1.1, B and C are about monitoring and measuring methods and frequency. Methods are about being systematic and being comparable. So we don't want to start having doubts about whether the variation recorded is real or just the result of our way of measuring or monitoring. I still remember working as lab manager, okay, and we made some tests, what we call reproducibility and repeatability. Three operators in the lab operators doing analysis in 3 samples, so blind samples, and we realized that 2 of them have a different, were different from the other. So they were using, or they were following different practices. And so the difference in the results was not because of the sample, but because of the way the analysis was being done by the operators. So we need to be careful with that. So, for example, here in this table, we have something like a complaint. What is a complaint? When you sell a product or a service, it's one thing. So if it's something transactional, it's one thing. But when you build a house or install a system, and there is a long-term relationship, what is a complaint? When it starts to be just a remark and becomes a complaint, okay, we need to decide that, okay? So when an informal remark is a complaint. So we need to be careful, okay, to be sure that we are measuring the same thing. Different times are measuring the same thing. Now, planning requires definition of what to measure. So what are the indicators to follow? What is the measurement method? The data source, where are we going to collect the data? The measurement frequency. So the lower the frequency, the less feedback. The less the feedback, the less the opportunities for doing something to change course if needed. And what is the target? So the difference between abnormal and normal performance. And by the way, I see so much weirdness, okay, tied to this target setting or goal setting. Some to make people look good, some to avoid issues with auditors. And remember, so if you accept a terrible performance as the target, there is no need to improve. So it's a sign that people have given up trying to improve. And as auditor, sometimes I see things like that, okay? And also, who is responsible for measuring and review frequency, okay? And I leave here the link for 2 articles. One is called Making the Best Out of ISO 9001 Quality Plan. And the other one is Analysis of Measuring and Monitoring Requirements in ISO 9001. Okay, so now let's see about this frequency, okay? What is the best frequency for analysis? So imagine a factory where machine breakdowns frequently occur, okay? The maintenance team reviews downtime reports just once a month. And by the time they notice a trend, okay, production has already suffered major disruptions. In contrast, another factory monitors machine performance weekly and takes preventive measures before breakdowns occur. So which one do you think has fewer stoppages and lower maintenance costs? So why does frequency of analysis matter? Not all data needs to be analyzed at the same frequency, okay? The key is to match the review frequency with the impact of the issue. So if something can cause significant damage, like safety failures or machine breakdowns, it should be analyzed frequently. So let's break this down into 3 levels. So high impact areas, so like safety incidents, should be measured or monitored real time or daily monitoring, okay? Process performance, like defect rates, should be, well, a weekly, monthly analysis. Strategic indicators, like customer satisfaction, perhaps quarterly or annually. So if an issue can cause serious problems, review it frequently. If it's a long-term trend, review it periodically. So for critical processes, I recommend high-frequency analysis. So think about the key process in your organization, all right? Are you analyzing it at the right frequency, or are you realizing problems too late? Frequency of analysis should match risk. The higher the impact, the faster the feedback loop, okay? So we measure, and now we need to do the analysis. So we collect the data, now we need to translate data, raw data, into insights, okay? So and that starts when we do the analysis, okay? What is analysis of results? So an overwhelming table, you have here a table of numbers, messy, small font, cluttered on one side, and a simple, clear graph showing trends on the other side. Which one tells the story better? Now, looking at numbers without context is like trying to navigate in the dark, okay? Confusing and full of guesswork. Many organizations spend hours collecting data, but fail to extract, to distill, okay, useful insights from it. Have you ever sat in a meeting where a huge table of numbers was presented and everyone was struggling to make sense of it? Then someone turns that data into a graph and suddenly the trend becomes obvious. That's the power of visualizing and analyzing data correctly. So trends matter more than single numbers. Improvement lives in patterns over time, okay? So collecting data is easy, but making sense of it is the real challenge. If we don't analyze it properly, we risk making the wrong decisions. Data is just numbers. Analysis is about turning numbers into meaningful information. So imagine a company sees their defect rate is 5%. Is that good or bad? Consultant answer, it depends, okay? And it's true, it depends. Without context, the number is meaningless, okay? Now, tables are precise, but graphs tell the story better. So if I show you a table with 12 months of data, you might spend minutes trying to figure out the pattern. But if I put that same data into a graph, you'll spot the trend in seconds. Okay, so I still remember when I was working in the chemical industry, graphing the average monthly particle size data for the first time, and what was coming out of the chemical reactor, and clearly seeing the influence of the average water temperature. Okay, particles growing from the end of the winter to summer, and then particles decreasing in size from the end of summer to winter. Okay, so comparing single data points is misleading. Okay, you need trends over time. Okay, so if last month's defect rate was 4% and this month is 5%, should we panic? Not necessarily. Okay, so if we look at the 12-month trend, we might see that fluctuations are normal. Okay, or we might spot a dangerous upward trend that needs urgent action. Therefore, I like to use and recommend what we call statistical process control, and particularly for these for individual data, statistical process control for individual values to better interpret the signals that the process sends us. Okay, because the results of the process is the process speaking to us. Okay, we may have specifications, okay, but I always remember someone saying or writing in a book many years ago that the specification is like a god from the Olympic sending an order, okay, but okay, the god may have or may send orders, but the process is only can give what it can give, okay, and the statistical process control tell us what is the state of the process, okay. So therefore, I like to recommend the statistical process control. I like to recommend, okay, the studying the Deming funnel experiment, okay, to understand the dangers of acting when we shouldn't, okay? So variability exists in any process, okay? It can be normal or abnormal, okay? And the statistical process control helps us distinguish one from the other, okay? We shouldn't act right away when we only have normal fluctuation, normal variation, okay? So, and the other one is simplify your dashboards with sparklines, okay? Use sparklines. Sparklines are your best friend. Compact, clear, and powerful mini graphs that provide instant insights, okay? So with sparklines, we can have a lot of indicators in just one page or one screen. And one critical rule for presenting data is that all data, all indicators, or all these graphs, all the analysis should be present in one single page of paper or one single screen. Because without that, it will be very difficult to make connections between what is happening between different indicators. I still remember the first time that I worked with that, with a dashboard. They had several pages, and we were in the company, we were looking from one page to the other, and then at some time we were lost. And at the beginning, I was thinking that this is my problem or the problem of this team. But then I realized, reading some experts on this presenting data, that's not not our particular problem, is for any human being, okay, for everybody. Now, we have here a question from Mohammed. Is the KPI are defined only for QMS, or the measurements that are made for qualification, conformance of a process products could also be considered as KPI? So KPI means key process indicators, okay? We may have a lot of indicators, but I like to distinguish, okay, KPIs from other indicators, because for me, KPI should be the ones that are presented to top management, okay? And we may have some strategic indicators, okay, that go to top management. I will call them KPIs. But we may have other operational indicators that don't need to go to be seen by the top management, but must be seen or need to be seen, or is better to be seen by the manager of a particular process or the manager of a particular department. Yeah. Okay. Right. So, well, all right, let's see. Let's continue here. Regarding analysis of results. What is analysis of results? With an example, okay? So imagine two companies facing the same problem. Customer complaints are increasing, okay? What happens with team A? The guessers, okay? Team A shrugs it off, okay? Oh, it's just a bad quarter, you know, they say. They keep working as usual, assuming the problem will fix itself, but over the next few months, complaints keep rising and soon customers start leaving, okay? Team B takes a different approach. Instead of making assumptions, they look at trends over the past 12 months. They compare their performance with industry standards and set up root cause analysis. And they discover that 80% of complaints come from a single recurring issue, which they quickly address, reducing complaints by 40% in the next quarter. So which team do you think survives the next year? So if you're only looking at the last month's number, you're missing the big picture, okay? Analyzing data over time, comparing it with goals and benchmarks, and using root cause analysis are the keys to making the right decisions. And you think, oh, people don't do that. No, people do that, okay? Because I see a lot of organizations where they have this kind of dashboards. You see here that image there. They have the kind of dashboards like this, like in a car. They only present the last number, the last result, or the last evaluation, okay? The last monitoring result. And with this kind of information, we are focused on the present, on the now, and it's an invitation to a kind of acting when we shouldn't act, okay? Or also not acting when we should act. So always look for trends, look for the evolution over time, okay? Now, I leave here a link for an article, how to implement the check phase, so performance evaluation, in the QMS according to ISO 9001, okay? Now, we have here a question from John. John asked, does the practice of measurement without analysis comply with the standard? Let's be clear. Does the practice of measurement without analysis comply with the standard? No, okay? No, no, no. Under ISO 9001, measurement without analysis does not comply with the standard, okay? The intent of clauses 9.1 and 10 is not to collect data, okay? But to analyze and evaluate it to understand performance, support decisions, and drive improvement. So measure data that is not analyzed is administrative activity, okay, not management, okay? When to improve? So we measure, we analyze, and now we decide, do we need to improve, yes or not? No, maybe a mistake. Okay, imagine driving a car. The fuel gauges show low level of fuel, but you think, it's probably fine, and you ignore it until the car stops in the middle of the highway, and now you are stuck, okay? So the signs were there, but you waited too long to take action, okay? And this happens in business all the time. Problems appear, but because they're not urgent yet, companies delay improvements until it's too late, okay? The simple rule is every deviation is an opportunity to act. But careful, every deviation is indeed an opportunity to act, but beware of the Deming funnel trap, okay? Immediate unplanned reactions to each minor deviation usually amplify variation instead of reducing it, okay? So use control charts to distinguish between normal process variation, normal process fluctuations, and significant changes needing action. Always investigate special causes first, determine root causes, and then implement structured, informed solutions. So a company should decide to improve performance when facing situations such as, you see here, failure to meet established objectives or targets, okay? So when indicators fail to meet previously defined targets, it signals that the process is not delivering the expected level of performance. Negative trends or deteriorating results over time. So if performance is consistently worsening, even if it still meets minimum targets, it becomes necessary to intervene before results become unacceptable, okay? When we have increasing complaints or customer dissatisfaction, so indicators reflecting customer satisfaction, such as rising complaints, negative reviews, or customer loss, for example, should prompt improvements in product or service performance. Increasing internal or external non-conformities, so frequent errors, rework, or rejections indicate that the process is out of control and improvements are needed. And unfavorable benchmarking or comparison with external best practices. So when comparisons with other companies or sector standards reveal that the organization's performance falls below industry benchmarks. I remember some years ago, I was working with an hospital, a public hospital or a state hospital. And for them, it was incredible. Benchmarking, so comparing with other hospitals in the rest of Europe was the main concern. So if I was just inviting them to, we need to improve this because of reduced costs, or no big deal. But we need to, shouldn't we improve to have a better comparison with these other European hospitals? Yeah, great. Oh, yeah. So consider what can be more motivating to start this improvement in an organization. And the last one here, need to reduce costs and or waste. Okay, so poor operational performance resulting in high costs, waste, or inefficiencies indicate an immediate need for improvement. So in summary, the decision to improve performance should be guided by a rigorous analysis of indicator results, feedback from customers and stakeholders or interested parties, audit findings, management review outcomes, and the external context of the organization. So ISO 9001 also emphasizes proactive actions. Organizations should act before problems escalate, anticipate negative trends, and continually seek opportunities for improvement. Okay? Now, when do we decide to improve? Okay, so you have here two cycles. One is very well known. It's in the ISO 9001 standard, the PDCA cycle, the improvement cycle. And then the other one is less known, is the SDCA cycle, okay? Or I call it the control cycle or the process control cycle. And this works like this. Any organization, okay, follows a standard. A standard here is a procedure, a practice, okay, maybe written or not, okay. So we have a procedure, we have a practice, how to do some kind of activity, and we follow that activity, okay. We do our work, we do according to that standard, and we check the results, and then we act. And if the results are okay, we say, okay, we can trust in our standard, so we can stay here in the control cycle, okay? But sometimes what happens is when we check, we realize that we have, so we monitor and measure, and we ask, it's okay, is this okay? And sometimes the answer is no, and we have a non-conformity. Okay, we need to treat the non-conformity. Is it solved? Okay, no. And we stay here in this loop until the answer to the question is yes, it's solved. Okay, now after solving, we have another question. Do we need to improve? And the answer may be no, we don't need to improve, and stops there, the end. Okay, but sometimes, yeah, we realize that this nonconformity was so important, the impact was so big, okay, that the answer is yes, we need to improve, and we have an event-based improvement, okay? We need to develop a corrective action. Why? Because we want to avoid the recurrence of a critical event, okay? Like an important complaint. We don't want this to repeat again. Or a nonconformity with a big cost, or that made us stop the line for many hours. So, okay. Now, in that case, when we decide that we need to improve, what happens is that the action here is we need to leave this cycle and jump into the improvement cycle. So we go to here, to the P. We are going to plan an experiment, okay? We are going to do the experiment, and we are going to check the results, and then we are going to act. Oh, the experiment didn't work, okay? We could not improve the performance as we like it. It's not effective, okay? We need to do another turn of the cycle. We need to do planning another experiment, doing the experiment, check. But, okay, the answer may be, yes, this works, okay? What is the action? Update the standard, update the procedure, update the practice, the way we do it, okay? Now, we monitor and measure. And we ask, is it okay? And sometimes the answer is, and we hope it, most of the time the answer is, it's okay, yes, okay, great. But periodically, okay, we need to prepare a performance report. And we look into that performance report, so we translate the data into an analysis or insight, meaningful information, and we look into that information and we say, do we need to improve? And the answer may be no, the end, stop, okay. Or the answer may be yes, and then we have a calendar-based improvement. Okay, so here is more like we can't live with the current performance. It's not because of a single event, but because of the trend, or because of the average, or the trend that we are, the average result of the month, or the trend that we are checking. Yeah. So this is when we are going to do, when we are going to improve. Okay. Now here we have the clauses 9.1, 8.7, so 10.2 corrective actions here, 9.1.3, so the evaluation, analysis evaluation, and here we have the continual improvement. Okay. What more? Okay, here we have a correction. So correction is mandatory in ISO 9001. So whenever a non-conformity is identified, the organization must make action to eliminate it. Clause 10.2. However, corrective action is not always mandatory. It is required only when there is a risk of recurrence, or when the non-conformity is significant enough to warrant deeper action. Okay. So the decision to implement corrective action depends on the severity and the likelihood of recurrence. Correction fixes today's problem. Corrective action protects tomorrow's performance. Okay. Now, we leave here a link for an article called ISO 9001, Difference Between Correction and Corrective Action. And let me show you here something like this. So you will find all the documents that can help you doing this monitoring, measuring, analysis, and evaluation, and then the corrective action in our ISO 9001 Premium Documentation Toolkit. Okay, so you have here the list of all the documents that we have in the toolkit. So we have procedures, we have forms, we have guidelines. So yeah, so for example here for the management review, but I will show you examples here of the procedure for management of non-conformities and corrective actions, and this one here, this form for non-conformity record. So for example, this one here, procedure for management of non-conformities and corrective actions. So this is a Word document, so you can customize this into your organization. So you can you don't need to start from scratch. Okay, so you can customize this. You have here in this example, so you have here a process flow, and you have here the link for some articles that can help you. So like here, okay, about the non-conformities, and here about the corrective actions. And the example for the non-conformity record, so you have here this form also. Okay, so you can customize these. You can put here your logo. You have here the suggestions, or yeah. Okay. So you can see the details of this toolkit. I will leave now the link in the chat, okay, for where you can check the details of this toolkit. Okay. Now let's go back to the presentation, and so the steps or the good practices for how to improve. Okay, it's something like this. So imagine a logistics company struggling with late deliveries. Okay, every week they rush to solve delays, adding more drivers, changing schedules, but the problems keep coming back. Okay, then they decide to analyze the root cause. Instead of treating the symptom, late deliveries, they dig deeper and find the real issue. So poor route planning. By implementing the PDCA and root cause analysis, they reduce delays by, for example, 30% in just 6 months. So what is the lesson? Small fixes don't lead to real improvement. Okay, correction is not improvement. Correction is very important. Okay, is removing the nonconformity, but removing the nonconformity is not improvement. It's just coming back to the status quo. Okay, real improvement okay, isn't about luck. It's about using the right methods, okay? When you decide to improve, you embark on a journey. So decide who will lead the project, explain the why, explain why we need to improve, show the context, okay? Show the pain, show the potential benefits if we are able to improve. Okay, so the improvement team should study the current situation. So use tools like the Pareto charts, histograms, and flowcharts to see the challenge from different lenses. Now after that studying, you can set improvement targets. Okay, the desired outcome and success metrics. So later will help us evaluate the effectiveness of actions. Okay. So beware of over-ambitious goals. They will take a long time and eat all initial momentum, okay? Start small. Small steps will train your team in the methodology. Early successes will motivate and build confidence. So don't forget the progress principle. So, yeah. So, for example, okay, from this is very general, very vague, and here you have very specific, a very specific specification for improvement. Okay. Now, what we need to do then is to find the root cause or causes behind the challenge. Ask the 5 whys. Use the fishbone diagram, check sheets, and look for correlations. Okay. I leave here the link for 2 articles: how to use quality control tools to improve your QMS, and about the use of the 5 whys. Check this article, how to use root cause analysis to support corrective actions in your QMS. Okay. Oh, I'm very late. I need to, okay. Oh, it's the usual here. Okay, determine alternative countermeasures. So evaluate possible solutions. So choose a solution, okay, among the possible solutions. Plan implementation. Who will do what, until when, what resources are needed. Check implementation, report results, and evaluate effectiveness. If okay, return to the SDCA cycle and standardize or modify the standard, okay? The procedure, the practice. What can go wrong when this is implemented in an organization? So is there a calendar for analysis and evaluation? Are performance targets set? Sometimes no. Do we believe that improvement is about changing the system and not about blaming people? Sometimes no. Who is leading the improvement journey? What kind of training do you provide to people participating in the improvement team? They start, if they don't have enough training, okay, they start defending themselves and their people. They mix motives with causes. They don't use improvement tools. They don't test hypotheses. They don't do any follow-up. Top management doesn't follow up and doesn't celebrate success. We need to celebrate success. We need to make these teams confident that they can use a methodology to improve. Okay, so start small, and then with the progress principle, they will be able to get to go very far. Okay, now to finish this, okay, common barriers to improvement. We measure, we analyze, we even propose corrective actions, yet things don't really improve. Sound familiar? Okay. Let's see the common barriers. No real root cause analysis, okay, solving symptoms instead of problems, just correction. No accountability, who owns the problem, who follows up. Lack of management commitment, so decisions are ignored or delayed. Data overload, too much measurement, not enough action, okay? And the push mentality, reacting to events instead of shaping the future. Organizations with a push mentality are constantly reacting to problems as they arise. They wait for failures, customer complaints, or crises before taking action. And this results in a short-term firefighting approach where teams focus on fixing what's already broken instead of preventing problems. This is really common, okay? Now, Every analysis should lead to a defined action. Assign clear responsibilities and deadlines. Measure if improvements are actually working, don't assume. And follow a pull mentality, okay? Being pulled by a desired future. So organizations with a pull mentality don't wait for problems. They actively shape their future. One thing is, the difference is pull mentality, they are driving the bus, okay? Push mentality, they are in a back seat, okay? Not driving the bus. So improvement isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about staying ahead, preventing failure, and making things better every day, okay? Stop reacting, start anticipating. Use leading indicators instead of just tracking past failures, okay? Now, main challenges, okay? Based on the questions received before this webinar, the 3 most important challenges organizations face with measurement, analysis, and improvement under ISO 9001 are confusing measurement with management. So many organizations collect KPIs but struggle to analyze, interpret, and use them for decision making, turning measurement into reporting rather than improvement. Like what I see in many management reviews is just reporting, no improvement. Defining meaningful KPIs aligned with strategy. So there is persistent difficulty in choosing indicators that reflect purpose, outcomes, and strategic priorities, especially for services, projects, and support processes. And last one, integrating actions across silos. Organizations generate actions from audits, KPIs, risks, 𝗂𝗲, corrective actions, preventive actions, and management review, but like a single coherent system to prioritize, track, and assess effectiveness, leading to fragmentation and loss of focus. So, in short, the core challenge is not measuring more, but measuring what matters, analyzing it well, and turning it into coordinated action. Okay? So, conclusion. So to conclude, measurement and analysis should be aided by proper tools to present the data and proper environment for evaluating the information. Measure to understand, analyze to decide, and improve to change the system. And to make the whole process easier and faster, you can use 𝗏𝗏𝗴𝗏's ISO 9001 Premium Documentation Toolkit. So here's the link with more details. You have the link. And I'll also send you now the meeting link to schedule a call with our toolkit expert. He'll explain you how toolkit works, okay, and show you any document you'd like to see. So here's the meeting link. Okay. Before starting the Q&A, just leaving here some links. So there is a published book called Discover ISO 9001 Through Practical Examples. Perhaps it could help you and your project. So it's very practical, not much theory, but with the development of a case study, an example. I invite you to check. So I wrote that book, so perhaps can be useful for you. I invite you to check our courses that you can enroll for free. The ISO 9001 Foundations courses about the standard, the lead implementer about implementing a management system, the ISO 9001 Internal Auditor course, and our ISO 9001 Lead Auditor course, okay? Now, before we begin with the Q&A session, just to mention that you can also ask me anything about ISO 9001 directly. Just send me an email and I'll answer as quick as I can. If you have to leave before this Q&A session is over, please do fill in the short survey that will open right after you leave the webinar, okay? Let's see. So I will start first with the slides that are related to questions that I received before this webinar, okay? Stephanie asked, what are some common leading indicators that can be tracked versus lagging indicators? Okay, so leading indicators are predictive, so they signal future performance and enable preventive action, okay? Lagging indicators are reactive. They confirm results after the fact. So common leading indicators, so we have something like on-time milestone completion, process compliance or first time right rates, training completion and competence gaps, risk identification, supplier delivery trends, customer inquiry or change request trends. Okay, common lagging indicators, customer satisfaction scores, nonconformities and complaints, rework, defects or service failure, missed deadlines or budget overruns, corrective actions raised, warranty claims or returns. So lead indicators lead to manage, lag indicators to confirm. Okay, so for example, how on-time milestone completion is a leading indicator. Well, it is leading indicator because it signals future delivery risk before final outcomes are missed. Okay, so if we follow this indicator, on-time milestone completion, we can act before the final delivery to the customer. Okay, so a final deadline is lagging. Okay, so because when milestones start slipping, they predict downstream failures, late delivery, cost overruns, customer dissatisfaction. So that's the difference. Okay, if you can still change the outcome when the indicator moves, it's a leading indicator. Okay. Let's see another question. Anna asked, we monitor and analyze through different KPI. Those analyses will create discussions and actions to implement. How to control the actions originated from all the different departments, quality, production, nonconformities, review management, risk, and opportunities. Okay, so we can control them through what I call a single integrated action management system. Rather than something done by locally by department. So under ISO 9001, all actions from KPIs, audits, nonconformities, risks and opportunities, management review should be logged into a single register. Okay, this integrated action management system, linked with an action ID, identification. So linked to the source and objective. Okay, assigned an owner and deadline, prioritized by risk and impact, and tracked by closure and effectiveness. So with the status. Okay, okay. So based on that, departments we overrun the department silos that create noise, and we have system level visibility that creates control. Okay, so if an action cannot be tracked, prioritized, and reviewed, it's not controlled and therefore not compliant. Okay. And okay, this one, Chris asked, in clause 9.1.3, I see the word shall before it goes into the A through G list. What should be good examples to satisfy C, D, E, and G? Okay, so clause 9.3 requires organizations to analyze and evaluate data to support management decisions. So examples could be something like this. So for the C, performance and effectiveness of the QMS, trend analysis of key indicators to assess whether objectives are being met. Okay. If about the effectiveness of planning actions, review of action plans showing whether expected results were achieved. Okay. Effectiveness of actions taken to address recent opportunities, kind of a comparison to before and after, demonstrating reduced incidents, variability, or failures. And the last one, need for improvement to the QMS. So management conclusions, management decisions, identifying where processes, resources, or controls must change. Showing that. And the last question before this webinar that I'm going to answer here is, Ruth asked how to ensure keeping a focus on key business strategic and operational measures and not get tied up in knots with numerous measures that may not add value. So what questions should we ask ourselves to achieve this? So I will give you two answers, two slides. First, the official answer, let's say so. Okay, so ensure focus, how to stay focused. So ensure focus by measuring only what drives decisions and results, not everything that can be measured, okay? So ask questions like this. What decisions will these measure influence? Does it link directly to a strategic or operational objective? Is this a leading indicator we can act on? What behavior does this measure encourage? What would we stop doing if this measure moved? If we remove it, would anyone notice or act? So, if a measure does not change priorities, behavior, or decisions, does not have value and should be dropped, okay? Now, let's go to my way, okay? This is how I like to do it, okay? So, I start with this kind of questions. Who are your target customers, target clients? What do they value? Okay. How do you win their preference? So how do we gain customers? How do you satisfy them? We want satisfied customers. How do you keep them? We want to retain customers. Okay. So what are the most important activities to win customers, to satisfy customers and keep them? So, for example, one of those activities may be we work with good suppliers, okay? We select good suppliers. And because not just because of that, but also because of that, because we work with good suppliers, we comply with our production plans, okay? And because of that, we deliver on time, and that makes customers satisfied, okay? Or another example may be, and we can find this cause-effect relationship between different critical activities, okay? So, for example, we present innovative solutions, so we are very good in developing new solutions. Also, because we are good, we work well, and also because we have help of good suppliers. And because of that, we gain customers, and we measure that through acquisition rate, okay? And, okay, churn rate could be another way of measuring here, this one. What more? And because we have satisfied customers, but through word of mouth, we'll gain more customers. And because we have satisfied customers, we'll also retain them, okay? And to be very good in these critical activities, we need to be good or to have some capabilities, okay? We need some indicators to measure our capabilities, our critical capabilities. And the last set of indicators must be financial. Is this really working? Okay. Are we getting the good results in financial results? So that's how I decide what are the critical indicators, the strategic ones. Okay. Now let's go back to. I know I'm late, so I'm very sorry. That's all. I have some more questions here. I have a question here from 𝗂𝗵𝗶. 𝗂𝗵𝗶 asked, "Is this same as objective setting and planning to achieve it, or they are intertwined?" Oh, now it's too late. I don't know what. 𝗂𝗵𝗶, I'm sorry. If you can ask again or provide more context, I would be glad to help you here. Okay. So Andre asked. So I mean the concept of measurement. Yeah, okay. We set objectives for process performance, for product performance, for customer satisfaction. We set objectives, okay? And some of those objectives are improvement, okay? We want to improve our performance, okay? And so if we don't do nothing, things will stay as they are right now. So that if we want better performance, we need to change something, okay? And so we need to plan what needs to be done, what needs to be changed to achieve that performance, okay? And that's it, okay? When we react because of a bad result, okay, we are doing that situation of the based improvement. But when we look into the last year's performance and we look into this current year, what we want in the next year, what we decide is objective setting, and we are doing a calendar-based improvement proactively. Okay, we want to improve. I don't know if this helps. Okay, so question from Andre. Andre asked, why does the ISO 9001 standard not include the concept of continuous improvement or clarify the difference from continual improvement, while most organizations pursuing operational excellence refer to the activities of ongoing performance enhancement as continuous improvement? This is an interesting question. Continuous, continual. Okay, so in my language, I'm Portuguese. In Portuguese, we only have one word. Okay, it's like safety, security. In English, we have continual, continual, velocity, speed, safety, security. Different words, different things. So ISO 9001 deliberately avoids continuous improvement because in its literal sense, continuous implies improvement without interruption, which is unrealistic, okay, and operationally misleading for management systems. The standard uses continual improvement to reflect how organizations actually improve, okay, through iterative, planned, and evidence-based cycles, the PDCA cycle, with pauses for stabilization, learning, and consolidation, okay? By the way, when I read in documents, in papers, continuous improvement related with ISO 9001 stuff, I always think, this was done by ChatGPT, okay? Because ChatGPT doesn't use the word continual. Almost you always use the word continuous. Okay, another question is from the question is from Elizabeth. Elizabeth asks, how do you define KPIs for services or projects that don't have tangible deliverables? For example, program management, team guidance. Okay, so define KPIs by intended outcomes, okay, and decision usefulness, not by tangible outputs. So you can, under ISO 9001, services without physical deliverables can be measured through some things like effectiveness. So are objectives achieved, milestones met, decisions enabled, issues resolved? So effectiveness. The other one is value to customer. So did the service improve clarity, confidence, or results? Or process reliability. So was the service delivered as planned? Timeliness, responsiveness, adherence. Did it reduce future risk or rework? So are we learning and improving? So I have here some more questions, but I will answer them through an email, okay? Because it's too late, and then people complained that I'm not finishing the webinar on the scheduled hour. So I will. So I have here questions from, let me see, from Cheryl, from Noor, and Janice, and yeah, I will send you an email with the answer to your questions. Okay. So let's go to the last slide. So I think I've covered almost all your questions. So let's wrap up the webinar. As I mentioned, this 1 hour webinar is intended to give you an overview of the ISO 9001 monitoring, measurement, analysis, and improvement. I hope I could give you some useful hints. So you can ask me anything about ISO 9001 directly by email. You can also download this presentation deck from our website or take a look at video tutorials and documentation templates. We'll send you the email with all necessary links. Finally, if you join this webinar through Zoom, you'll see a short survey. So I would kindly ask you to spend a minute to fill it in. The recording of this presentation will be available in a few hours. You'll receive a link to the recording. If you join the webinar through LinkedIn and YouTube, you will receive a link to the short survey now, and the link to the presentation will be posted on our event page in a few minutes. That will be all. Thank you for your participation, and I hope you enjoy this webinar. Have a nice day.